What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 125 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk to you about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And today's episode is brought to you by Alliance Gator. Their innovation has brought products like Gator Base, G2 polymeric sand, Extreme Edge, Nitro joint sand, and a diverse range of geotextiles to the hardscape market. Go check them out at alliancegator.com. And on today's episode, we mash up previous I'm a Hardscaper interviews with hardscape business owners, answering what they do when a potential client first contacts them, whether through email, phone call, or a form on their website. Where does this lead to? Coming to the initial consultation or scheduling that initial consultation. So without further ado, let's get into this. This is Sean of Premier Outdoor Living.
First is that phone conversation. I talk about, what they're looking for, what kind of budget to expect, kind of set that expectation. If that sounds good, I tell them I'll come out. We'll talk about some ideas on site. I'll come up with kind of a vision for the project along with your ideas, and then I'll kind of fine tune that budget. And I let them know that the next step in the process is a 3D design, which costs $500. It's deductible off the cost of the project if they move forward. So if they're okay with all that, then we do that initial consultation. I meet with them on site, and we just kind of talk ideas. I don't do a fee for me just coming out, kind of for two reasons. I think that can put off some people that could be very serious leads. So I do let them know that it's $500 for the design, so they know that if they want to pursue this, they are going to have to put out some money. But I also want, a lot of times I'll go on site, and even though it sounded good on the phone, it's a project that I kind of want to walk away from. And I feel like if you charge, say, $200 to just come out for a consultation, it's a little harder to say, okay, now I'm here, but I'm really not interested in this. So it leaves that flexibility open, which I like, and it really forces me to just try to pre-qualify better through our website and through that phone consultation, so that, at least 75% of those on-site visits, I really feel like is a good lead. It could be a good fit, but I still have the option to kind of walk away from it, refer them somewhere else, and they don't feel like they're taken advantage of because they just spent $200.
This is Caleb of Almond Landscape.
A lead will either come in through our website or through a Facebook message or, on our company, phone line, or even onto my cell. Somehow somebody gets my cell phone somehow, which is fine, by the way. I give it out all the time for work contacts. Geez. So, we'll return a phone call. I try to get on the phone if possible, for a few reasons, to begin to pre-screen a client, to talk to them, see what they want to do. So a call will come in or a request will come in. I will try to talk with them on the phone if at all possible, or for whatever reason, if it's, an email that they want responded to via email. But I try to get a concept of the scope of the projects. I want to know, you can kind of gauge what they know about landscaping or landscape construction through a conversation. If they start out the conversation immediately with, "Hi, do you give free quotes?" Right there's an instant red flag to me. I'm so disinterested in that phone call at that point that it's not even funny, because I know immediately that person is just budget shopping or price shopping. And so they're not going to respect my time when I drive half an hour, whatever, to their property and take all this time and experience and tour the property with them and all that stuff. So one of the first things is like how they set the call up, I guess. And so one of the key kisses of death for us, working with you, is if you ask if we give free estimates, because for the most part we don't. We have a $75 consult fee initially on brand new clients that we've never worked with before. And unless they're super local, but if they're super local within 5 miles, I want to get in front of them anyways, because of a thing we've kind of coined, I think, which is zip code domination. And we want to be the contractor locally. We want to be the people you're going to. So I'll waive the fee on those usually, just because, chances are they know someone else locally, and I at least want to get in front of them so they know me, they know my face, and they might refer to me yeah, we had Almond out, and, it didn't work out for us to do anything with them, but you might try them out. And so we're always trying to build our name locally that way. So we'll get a thing figured out where we'll figure out what their project is. Sometimes if I don't feel good about the call, I'll ask if they've had any pricing on it. I'll figure out what their square footage of their project is and just kind of give them a rough ballpark of most of our patio projects start at $10,000. Is that something that's agreeable to you? Or would we need to try to trim that back? Or do you have a better budget than that? And so we do all this very tactfully, right? Not just very rude and crude. so we run through a process like that, and then we meet. Then we'll meet generally as soon as we can. We don't want to lose the opportunity. I'll print out from our county auditor's website has a thing you can download on their website is a footprint of the house online through the county auditor's website. And so I'll take that with me because it helps save some time taking dimensions. I will then go through a walkthrough with the client. This is pretty standard stuff here, but we'll take dimensions, elevation. So we'll run through a thing where, we'll see what the client wants to achieve. We'll really try to tack them down as to what their budget is. It does mean, and this is why I say this to them, is, I know it's not a fun conversation to have, but if you have any idea what your budget is, be it whatever, and then I'll go through like projects like this generally run about 20 or 30,000 or 5,000 or whatever. And so if they get kind of cold feet at that or whatever, and so then I also come back around and say, and the reason I say this is because if I design you a project that's $70,000 and your budget's 20, nobody's going to, benefit from that. And so, in that way it doesn't, nobody wins in that case. So we want to tailor a project to you that fits your budget. And so, that's why the budget is so important. And so we talk about that. And, if they still just say, well, come up with something, get back with me. I kind of am hesitant to that, but I'll draw something, or I'll even just spec something kind of middle of the road. I'll spec something kind of middle of the road. And, that way, if we come back, we can say, look, we can add lighting, we can take the lighting out, and kind of work through there. But if they won't give me a number to work off of, I get real skeptical about the project in general. And also too, it tells me I haven't done enough to build trust or rapport with them, because some folks will think like, well, if I tell you $20,000, you're going to hit me for $19,999. You're going to do everything you can to nail that budget, right? And not like, well, hey, actually the project came in at $17,500. Awesome. We beat your budget, right? Which it never does, right? It's always like they want the moon. And I know myself too. I'm shopping for trucks like, no, I want the world for $20,000, So like, I get it. So I try to be empathetic with my clients too in that regard. So I'm like, that's kind of our initial process. So we'll take that information back to the office. We'll either do something quick in our design software, and generally I'll shoot something back to them via email, a concept and some pricing, and this is the bad salesman in me. If I was a good salesman, I would set an appointment, I'd go meet with them, I'd present it, and I'd tack them down on the spot for how much do we want to do? Let's get some money down, let's schedule it, let's do it. I don't push like that a lot. It's not my style. I'm really bad about that. And if I was a better salesman, I would go for the close, and I would just, crush on that close. So the projects that I really want, I might go that extra step to try to meet with them, make sure it's painted out. But generally what we'll do is we'll get a project together and we'll email it back to them with pricing and a 3D rendering. And generally it's just going to be a patio with like 6 plants and a tree. And we don't get into like really large landscape installs like some of my peers do that I admire so much on Instagram. Our general project is going to hover $10,000 to $20,000. We don't get into like $60,000 backyards too often, especially because of our rural demographic. But it's kind of one of the things we've gotten known for. And I've got buddies locally; they do on average $60,000 projects. And it's one of those things. The more you do of one thing, the more you get known for, right? If I really wanted to go down that road, I would make an effort to get into those large projects regular. But we've really found a sweet spot in these $10,000 to $20,000 jobs. We're in and out in a week or a week and 2 or 3 days. And we're hitting good numbers on those projects, and we really like them. And I'm cool with that. My ego is now out of the game. My ego used to be in the game big time of like, oh, we did this patio, we did that patio. I don't care about that anymore. I want the profitable work, and that's all I care about. Now, once in a while, I would be lying if I said I don't get into like, we want this job because it's on the main street in town, and we want the exposure. And it doesn't mean I'll lose money on it, but we might do some things to make sure that we do win the bid or win the project. Or I might try a little harder to sell it. But for the most part, we'll submit that stuff via email. I'll then call a client, check up on it. And we have a really good close ratio on most of that type of work. Again, that referral thing, that's where the referral is so strong and so good. That I guess, fortunately, and again, because it's a good economy, us sales guys don't have to work too hard to close on projects. So
this is Jeremy of J Squared Outdoor.
Always going to get them on the phone as quickly as I can. You can't really go back and forth on email to set up the initial consultation. I need to talk to them on the phone. I need to get a feel for who they are, what they're trying to accomplish, if they're a good fit. So when I get them on the phone, it's just a quick chat, but I just want to make sure that they're the right fit for us before we go out and meet with them. I'm going to ask them things like what kind of project they're doing, what their timeline is, what their budget is. Have they done anything like this before? I'm also going to try to get, if they just want a patio or something like that, I want to know how big it's going to be roughly. So, they don't ever know exactly how big it's, but they could say like 20 by 30. And you can kind of shoot some rough ballpark numbers at that point just to make sure we're in the same field as far as cost goes. Because a lot of people will call us and say, hey, I want this 500 square foot patio, and they think it's going to be $500 or something crazy like that. But if they're like, yeah, it's going to be, we know we're going to spend 20 grand, then you're onto something, and you can kind of set up some appointments. If they have no clue, a lot of times I'll have them send me some pictures, just text them to me, and I can say, okay, if we're going to throw a patio on this backyard, it's going to be kind of in this ballpark. And sometimes I'll say, oh my God, I didn't think it was going to be that expensive. But a lot of times that's a good way to get people going in your direction too quickly.
This is Garrett of Premier Landscape.
Yeah, pre-qualification is crucial. Time is money, and your time is valuable. And I've heard it in a lot of interviews and podcasts. Everybody kind of talks about it, and it is crucial. And everybody has their different approach. For us, we're definitely starting with a phase one pre-qualification, either via email or via phone call, and that's going to be fairly preliminary. So, what kind of project, what scope of work, to make sure that they're not looking for maintenance or some other work that maybe we don't do, but also the size of the job. Are they just looking for a front walkway, or are they looking for an outdoor living space? We don't do a lot of smaller jobs anymore. We've kind of shifted our focus a little bit just with the way we're set up in our overhead. So we have, other people we can refer out for that. And that's crucial to start with that preliminary. And then if they get through, phase one, which is usually with the office, there's what I would consider a phase two pre-qualification. Now you have your sales guy, your designer, or myself, in front of this client. You got a pulse on the project now. You've talked about it. Now's the time to start talking budget. Everybody hates to talk budget. No one knows what it's going to cost. Oh, you're the professional. You tell me. You have to be ready to talk budget or talk budget range, or at least be able to give them something to bite into there, so you're not wasting your time on any further design or estimating. You should be able to sit there and say, well, a kitchen's going to start at 10,000 and a fireplace is going to start at 8,000. And X amount of square feet of patio is going to start at whatever, 20,000. Okay, you're in the $40,000 to $60,000 range, and just wait for it. Just wait for that expression. I mean, their face says it all. If they're facing you and they're good and no problem, okay, let's talk design, let's talk estimate, and let's talk the process. But if that scares them, let's try to talk some options. And then if it doesn't fit, at least you can respectfully decline without wasting any more time.
This is Chad of Natural Design Landscapes.
If I'm getting a phone call during the day, I'm most likely not going to answer it unless it's from the client that I'm working for at that moment. I try and screen all my calls so that I'm not using one client's time to work for another, right? I'm the face of the company, but I'm also still out in the field installing. I have to try and separate my time so that my client at that time gets my full attention until I can move on to the next project. So what I'm trying to say is I'll return calls off the working clock, I guess. So after hours, whenever the saw's not running in the background, and whenever the packers aren't running, and whenever the machines aren't going off, I'll screen the calls. And if you are, I guess, lucky enough to get a hold of me, I'll schedule our estimates for generally sometime in the evening. You'll have a quick chat with the client, and we'll proceed from there. Sort of like a regular consult. I'll ask them what they want, why they want us to do it, because I think that's important at this point. Is are they calling us because they want us, or are they just looking for a number? And we're really, at this point, when it comes to hardscape, we're not the number guys. If price is number one, then honestly, as bad as it sounds, I don't really even want to be involved. I want to do something that's going to last, something that's going to look amazing, something that we're going to have fun doing, but I don't want to go through that whole penny pinching process like we used to do in the past, or starting out at least.
This is Tony of Group Zamco.
Well, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We get requests. A lot of our requests, obviously nowadays, people don't really call anymore. It's mostly online emails through our contact form on our website or Instagram, a lot through Instagram. Initially, I always ask for a phone number because I prefer to speak to a client directly first. I still have that kind of old school. I'm hands-on, right? I like the interaction. So I always speak to a client first and kind of just get the understanding of what their project is, what they want to do. I'll ask them, okay, first of all, where do you live? What area? And that gives me an idea, if it's something is feasible for us or not to begin with. And then ask them, is it a new development? Because there's so many factors at play. But once I gather that information, I understand what the project is, then what I'll do is I'll ask them to send me their certificate of localization with, if they could, a few photos of the property. That always helps. And I'll schedule an appointment with them on site at their home. I'll go there, discuss with them a bit further. But already at this point, we've discussed, what they want to do. But at that point, I will hand them a tackle block catalog, tell them to go through it, look at the products, kind of get an understanding of the materials that they like. And I'll see any kind of issues that may arise as far as the neighbor's land, the height of the neighbor's land, or a pool, or whatever the case is. From there, back then I used to go back. So up until last year, I used to go to the client with a 3D render and kind of run through the process and all that, make adjustments for them right there on the spot, and then either sign the contract with them immediately or give them time to, if that's what they want, give them time to think, and then come back and sign the contract, or send them by email, have it signed. Now it'll be a bit different in the sense that with our office space, first meeting will always be the same, but the second meeting, clients will be coming to us, right? Like I said, they'll be presented their project. Then they're going to, instead of just looking at the catalog, they're going to feel the materials. They're going to touch the materials. They're going to see the physical materials. And then from there, again, they're going to have the option if they want to sign immediately or they want to think about it. We have a zero pressure sales tactic. We don't believe in pressuring a client into signing. If they want our services are there. If they're not, if we're out of budget, or if, sometimes the vibe just isn't there, cool. Like, we have no problem with that. You know what I mean? It's, and everyone goes on their way and the door's always open, and we leave it at that. But yeah, that's basically in a nutshell what our sales call looks like.
This is Jordan and Kyle of Evolve Design Build.
Yeah. I'm probably going to nerd out on the whole sales process because this is big for me, right? So I want to apologize in advance for nerding out on this. But Kyle is, we're big on vetting leads right now. But I want to talk about there's two ways of thought process with that, right? So we have an office manager. If you call in, Kyle and I do not speak with our customers. I know there's a lot of companies that, they talk to the owner right away, right? You call into our office manager and, she does do a little bit of vetting. We have a minimum, which before we even go out, we do not charge for a consultation. And I'm going to tell you, there's nothing wrong with charging for a consultation. But what people need to realize is there's a difference between having a guy like myself that is able to go on every sales lead, right? Because Kyle is in the field. It's very challenging when I was starting Curry Tuck Lawn Care to be in the field every day. It's 90 degrees and you want to go on a lead at the end of the night, right? So you may need to vet your leads in a different way because you can't get to everybody, right? So it's more critical to vet your leads, or maybe charge for a consultation if that makes sense. With us, I do all the design work. I work in the field when I can, which this year has not been much because we're so busy. But I try to go on every lead that I can. We certainly have our office manager vet them to make sure they have a minimum budget. Like we really can't go to anybody's house for less than $3,500. We just can't. I mean, mobilization alone, there's just no way. Now we're not going to tell you that if somebody calls up and, they're 2 minutes from our shop, we can go down there for a one day or for, $1,500, $2,000, right? But typically we find out what their budget is. Our office manager does, and she puts everything in our calendar. In my calendar, I've got their email. They go into the system. She sends them a confirmation email. Be very professional. Make sure you schedule everything. And if you have a way of notifying your clients that you're coming or when their appointment time, we try to get back to them within 24 hours, and we try to see them that week. Make sure that your communication is critical with that process, because that right there shows them that you're serious. Okay. And then once I go out to the lead, because I'm able to go to every lead, right? So I try to educate them right out of the gate. The first thing I do is I want to, listen to them. Shut your mouth. I know that sounds crazy. Shut your mouth and listen to them. I have been to so many daggone meetings with other contractors and friends, and they just want to tell them what they want to do. Trust me when I tell you, you're going to have to tell them. You're going to have your opportunity to tell them and design the project for me. I promise you. But listen to them, especially the wives. They want to tell you why they want the space, what they're trying to achieve. By listening initially, you'll gain so much information and be able to engage back with them in conversation about their project. They want to feel involved. They're getting ready to invest $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000. Make it feel like an experience for them, Mike, and if they're not, the other thing is too, is like catalogs. I see so many contractors, and I know I'm nerding out on the sales process. TechoBlock, Unilock, whoever you're using, they're giving you free catalogs by the buckets. Every single lead, I don't care which one, give out your 2 vendors. I personally believe in having 2 products. We push for TechoBlock and Marmero stones. We feel like it's a good contrast, right? We've got the travertine, and then we've got the pavers with the TechoBlock. Give them that education. Give them the literature. A lot of times people will be like, oh, nobody brought these. Nobody gave me these. Well, right there, you're already ahead of your competition. And if you went to your supplier and you said, I'm going to give you TechoBlock, I'm going to give you an opportunity to get on 150 doorsteps a year, by giving out your catalog, they're going to go, man, that sounds great, And the other thing is with those catalogs, they get passed around. I cannot tell you how many times I went to a sales call, and 3 days later I got called to the neighbor's house because the lady looking at my catalogs decided to give them to her next door neighbor, Yeah. So right when you go out, right, you need to give those to them and just load up on them, man. I tell you, my rep will tell you, I hit them up for catalogs hardcore constantly. I bet I give out 250 catalogs a year, and that's no exaggeration. And then the second thing is, I'm big on the sample books. We have the sample books. When Techo came out with that was a big deal. Being able to show them the product. And what I'll say about the samples is, keep in mind, you're designing the space for them. That goes back to the listening. Do they need to pick their paver out right now? I hear so many guys say, well, I'll take measurements, let them look through the book. That's a good thing. I don't want to say do not do that, but give them homework. And what I mean by that is have them email you back their style. Say, hey, here's the books. Let's have you pick a few styles you like and email me back and tell me what you liked out of the catalog. And right there, you're vetting your lead. If you don't get an email back from them, they're not serious. Anybody that's interested is going to email you back. Okay. And with that being said, respond quickly after that meeting, asking for that information. Hey, Mrs. Smith, I enjoyed meeting with you, maybe 24 to 48 hours later. Did you have an opportunity to turn through those catalogs and see some of those products that you liked? And they're going to, if they don't respond back, guess what? You vetted that lead. And with that being said, we don't even start a design until we have a design contract. And I actually stole mine from Jeremy Swihart with J Squared. Him and I are good friends, and he has the best design contract I've ever seen. So I will give him 100% credit on that. So I don't even give you a quote unless you're willing to pay for a drawing. Okay, because how can anybody give anybody a price on anything without a plan? I mean, that'd be like going to the car dealership and walking in there and saying, give me a red car. Well, You want the one with power windows? You want the one with a heated steering wheel? What do you want? How can you give me a price on it? And I explain that to the customer that, you want to have, I want to give you the best value. I never tell people I'm going to be the cheapest. I tell them that I want to give them the best value. And in order to give them the best value, I need to make sure we have a plan to go off that fits all their needs and their budget. Yeah, so absolutely. That's another thing. I don't draw, and this takes time, man. You can't, when I was first starting out, I don't want people to think that I had it figured out, because I was nervous, man. I was nervous as can be. I'd be like, oh, I want to ask them their budget. They're going to tell me no. Listen, if you don't know their budget, it's not helping anybody. It's not helping them, because you're going to spend all this time drawing a project. And this was before we even charged for designs. We've only been charging for designs, maybe a year and a half. And I mean, this year alone, I bet we've sold maybe $15,000 in designs. And typically most designs we're only charging $250, $300, but I just sold one for $1,500. I sold one for $1,800. That's going to weed them out right there too, like the design fee. But I don't even draw without a budget. People will be like, well, I don't have a budget. No, trust me, you have a budget. Everybody has a budget, because if I told you, well, I can give you, how about 400,000? You go, whoa, wait a minute, So don't even leave there. And there's a way to ask. Be respectful. Don't step on their toes. Don't belittle people. Don't, whether their budget's 5, whether their budget's 10, that's fine. You don't need to go, well, oh, you can't have all those things for that budget. The first thing I would recommend is, if they tell you they got a $5,000 budget, but they tell you they want a fire pit and a seating wall and 300 square foot of pavers, well, you and I both know that's a hard budget to work with, right? But with that being said, show them what their budget can get them after you've acquired that design fee, and then show them what they want and where that budget is. That goes on educating your client. Does that make sense?
This is Dylan of DNR Hardscapes.
So pretty much vetting our customers. I mean, I think everybody does it. I mean, with the hardscaping world, you got to understand there's some parts of town that you're not going to be installing hardscaping on. I am the guy that I reply back to everything. I may automatically see it, and I may deny it right then and there. But I always reply back to that customer no matter what. I never left something unread. I never leave a lead unfollowed. Because I will say this, 2 years ago, my very first pool that I ever installed, I got a lead. This woman messaged me, and I'll never forget it the rest of my life. And she sent me her address. She's like, hey, we're looking for a pool, blah, blah, blah. And at that point in time, I was really hurting for jobs. I was like, we're in February time frame. I was like, it's getting winter, I'm trying to find some jobs to match up. And I almost didn't go this job. It was in a very bad part of town. I looked up their house. I looked up their parcel. I looked up their property taxes. And I was like, these people, there ain't no way we can even fit a pool in their backyard. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to go do it. I sold a $170,000 pool project to that person. And at that point in time, I realized, I was like, no. I was like, it's not about who's doing this, who's doing that. It's about how you can sell it. If somebody doesn't like what you're doing, then your story is not good enough. And I've always lived by that for a very long time. So with doing that, I vet these customers by looking at a lot of different things. I ask them a ton of questions. Don't automatically look at their address. Don't automatically look at their side of town they're on. Don't automatically look at their property value. I've learned the hard way that way. The big things that you want to do is ask a lot of questions. Do they know what they want? Do they know how much they want to spend? Give them prices of stuff that you're doing. Give them rough estimates. But like most of my pool projects, when somebody messages me, I immediately tell them, I was like, most of our pool projects start off around 75,000. They go up to 150. But when you say that stuff, it scares people. So you have to add a story to that. You have to add, well, yeah, our pools are 75 to 150, but we're full turnkey. You don't deal with other customers. We don't come dig a hole, throw a pool in. You get full turnkey. You don't have to do anything. We take care of all your permits, electrical, plumbing, any fees associated, your fencing if you need that, retaining walls. We're your one-stop shop. So people start seeing the value in your story. So I always reply back to messages. On my website, I've got a place where they fill out the budget, where they fill out their time frame. When they do that, man, when somebody gives me $1,000 budget and they give me a 1 week time frame, it's really hard for me to reply back to that. But take advantage of that. Tell them, be like, hey, I'm a prestigious company. Like, this is the stuff that we do. We are booked out, 3 to 4 months. This is kind of the quality we can give you. If you're willing to wait, I'd be happy to come out and just chat with you. So that's kind of the steps that I've kind of taken. Like, a lot of people are really adamant on looking at people's property values, looking on their Facebook to see what kind of people they are. Man, I'm not one of those persons that judge a book by their cover because it's bit me a few times. And I was like, you know what? I'm never going to do that again. And I'm actually going to give everybody that time of day. And by doing that, also, you build that relationship with that customer, even if they don't go with you. They could go with another company. I've had 2 other people this year in the last 2 months that has actually went with a different company. One in Hendersonville and one in there's subdivision outside of town. Both of them have went with a different pool company, but I've gotten 2 jobs from those 2 companies based off of my interactions that I had with them from one of their neighbors. So don't start looking too deep into it. Don't start, looking at financials. Is this worth my time? A message takes you 10 minutes, man. A message takes you 5 minutes. You build that relationship with that person, and it could project you for that job. It could project you to further jobs. They're going to remember your name, and it's just networking. That's all it is. It takes 10 minutes of your time. Stay up a little bit later, reply, get a very in-depth, very professional message back to them, and I guarantee you they will remember that.
This is John of Signature Landscape.
In years past, before I now have 4 daughters, before I have more of a family commitment and a home commitment, I've pretty much taken down the information and gone to the meeting. And sometimes you're like, why am I here? Sometimes you're like, wow, this could be a great job. In 2009, especially this year, because there's been a big push towards spending on your home, people can't really go anywhere else. We've been screening a little bit harder. So a call can come in and we'll talk about what the client is looking to do. Maybe they talk about a patio space or a pavilion or a fire trough or a bar or what have you. And based on the conversation, I will ask the client, what are they budgeting? Obviously, I get the same answer we all get, like, we're not really sure what things cost. And then I might follow up with, would you like to take a minute with me and talk about that? And I'll give them ballparks. I've been doing this long enough where I can tell, a normal size pergola, a normal size pavilion, a normal size bar, a fire trough, a fire pit, a fireplace, and just give them a general feel based on the things you asked me for today. I think you're in the 40, 60, 80. I think you're bounced between the 60 and 100K range. Leave yourself room for error, but get on a level playing field. And usually based on experience, you can get a good feel on whether or not the client is still interested or if the tune changes. And that's usually just gut and experience on how much further you take it from there. I have also implicated this year, especially saying, why don't you take a minute to sit, to take it all in, or send some photos of the job site back to me and just open up the communication. People are comfortable with emailing, messaging, text messaging, and start talking about the project even before you get out there.
This is Josh of Sutton Outdoor.
Sure. So in the past, I used to answer my phone every call that came in, and I'm out working and I'm stopping and I'm answering my phone, taking the call, trying to find a McDonald's wrapper to write their phone number on. And, I've got receipts with people's address and meetings on it and in my truck. And, I'm like missing meetings. I'm missing phone calls. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. So this year I created my website on Squarespace, and they recently bought Acuity. And so now they're linked together, and that's an online scheduling platform. So I set up Acuity on my website. So now people call if I'm busy working in the field. I have a nice voicemail that says, hey, this is Josh with Sutton Outdoor. I'm working in the field. Please leave your name and number. You can visit our website, and now you can click on the link to schedule an online. You can click and schedule a consultation. So now they just go directly to my website, and I've kind of got some different blocks they click on to say, what's your budget? What are you looking for? Is there any other information you need, we need to know to schedule this meeting. And if not, they'll fill all that out, and we basically have a meeting set up online at their time. So it takes all the back and forth out of our meetings, so we can it just eliminates, like they call and say, hey, I'm available on Wednesday. Well, I can do Tuesday. Well, I'm available at 4 on Friday. And so now they just click on the link, schedule their appointment at their leisure. It links to my calendar on iCal. So all my personal calendar and everything is in there, and it'll block off time so I can put all my meetings after 4 p.m. or whatever, and that's the available times that show up. And then they click on that link, and it just automatically schedules with me. But they have to fill out the budget information and all the preliminary questions, which kind of filters out, the tire kickers and stuff for me. So going to that automated system's been huge. Last year, I probably missed out on $500,000 worth of work just because I wasn't always timely getting back, or people would get my voicemail and just say, oh, he's not interested. But I mean, I was definitely interested, but I was also busy working in the field. So doing this, going to Acuity has actually, I've scheduled probably 60 meetings this year through Acuity, and everybody's been like, man, that system was awesome. Like, I can schedule it at my leisure as I want, and I know you're going to be there. It sends them a follow-up email reminding them, hey, you've got a meeting today with Josh from Sutton Outdoor at 4 p.m. And they have the opportunity to cancel up to like 24 or 48 hours. But that's just been a huge thing for me. Still working in the field, not having a secretary or dedicated person, at first I was like, well, if they don't hear me talk or answer the phone, they're not going to be interested. But I don't know if it takes that awkwardness out of, people feeling like, oh, I don't want to have this awkward conversation. But I've probably closed 50% of our projects, because sometimes we're just higher cost. Or I'll generally, if they'll click on and say, I need a concrete patio, I'll call and say, hey, we don't do concrete. I'd refer you to this guy. But overall, it guides them through the website. It has, the areas we work in. We don't work in South Kansas City. We only work north of the river. We try to keep our route and we try to stay within 30 minutes of our home base here. So it just weeds out all those people. I try to just be as transparent on the website as possible and use that as a tool to educate our clients, and, it kind of pre-filters out some of the people that are, looking to just, looking for a good cheap price or trying to get multiple estimates. But it's worked really well for me.
I want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Alliance Gator. They are the makers behind Gator Extreme Edge, a concrete edge restraint product for hardscape installations. In our business, we have almost exclusively moved to a concrete edge restraint in our installs. Now, the only time we use a plastic edge restraint is in a Gator base installation where we fasten it directly to the Gator base. But Gator Extreme Edge is fiber reinforced and polymer modified, providing continuous lateral support. This provides more flexibility and better strength than just a regular concrete mixture for an edge restraint. We find it great to use in our open graded base installs or natural stone installs where the product is only 1 inch thick. It can also be installed in traditional overlay and concrete base applications. You can find out more about this product at alliancegator.com, found in the show notes of this episode, or connect with your local rep for installation assistance. Now back to our episode. This is Greg and Errol of Valley Outdoor Design.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, typically, like I said, because I handle most of the sales, I guess I'll kind of spearhead this one. Yeah. What a customer calls, or pretty much like 8 or 9 times out of 10, they actually contact us through our website, and the form on our website. And I've designed it. I handle the website ourselves, so I designed the contact form, and I pointedly ask questions on it where how much are you looking to spend, what's your budget, what are you looking for, when are you looking for us to get on site, that sort of thing. And I mean, this entire year, honestly, not even this entire, but I mean, since last summer, it's been, if a customer wants to work with us, you're going to have to wait a minimum of a month. A lot of cases, especially this year, it's probably been 2 or 3 months. Honestly, and I'm sure plenty of people can, plenty of guys can, relate to that. But if it comes in on the phone, I'll obviously at least listen to the voicemail, kind of. And after this, at this point, the first, you can kind of, doing it long enough, you can kind of tell, if this person is somebody that is going to work for you. We give free consultations. I try to vet the client enough where either over the phone or just from the initial voicemail or contact form, that it's going to be worth my time going out. And 9 times out of 10, it pretty much is. Even if we don't get the job, there's always something to be taken away from an interaction with a potential customer. But just like if they're contacting us for maintenance, like I said, that goes over to my dad. But in terms of landscape design build, just kind of asking them how much you're looking to spend. And then
location is
location, exactly.
Criteria that we look at.
Most of the jobs it's actually been pretty nice this year. Most of our jobs have been pretty close to our shop here, which has been great. But obviously, if it's too far away, then I won't. Or if we're too busy, then luckily I've made a lot of connections with other local contractors, and not even just local, but guys just in our region that if I can refer them to somebody, I'll do so. But in terms of if they're looking to do a project with us, at that point, I've probably talked to them, vetted them enough. All the questions that I've heard all the other landscapers and hardscapers you've had on the podcast, mentioned, so to speak. So I'll go out to a consult with them, and really, let's assume that they're asking for a patio off like their back in their backyard or something. When I'm talking to them, I'm really just kind of letting them, just kind of it's almost like letting the client brainstorm. I'm not interjecting too much until maybe after they've kind of rattled off a little monologue of what they're looking for. How much they're kind of willing to spend, or I may have to kind of drag that one out of them. And budget's definitely kind of difficult to get out of clients because you don't necessarily want to offend somebody. I hear all the time that, well, you can get a budget out of anybody. Do you want to spend $500,000? They're like, oh well, God, no. You don't necessarily. I feel it's a bit rude to necessarily just go down that path, even though it may sound like you're joking, or you may try to be joking. You don't necessarily want to go down that path, with a client. Like that, so I feel like it just kind of leaves a bad taste in their mouth. Because to them, you're trying to make them feel like feel important, and listen to them there. But just kind of gaining what trying to feel out what their style is, and I'll pointedly ask them, what colors what colors are they more attracted to? Kind of browns and tans, beiges, reds. Because let's face it, if it's a paver, there's probably a color out there for them. Regardless of whoever it is you're using. So kind of ask them what color it is you're looking for. What kind of style are you looking for? And a lot of times you can tell what the client's looking for just by, looking at their house. When I pull up, do they have, is there a lot of decorations out on their front porch or something in their driveway? What does the current landscaping look like? Does it not look, maintained as much? Do they not really have the time? Do they want to kind of devote something to it? Because even though a hardscape, it's not as, it doesn't need maintenance like a lawn does. It still, will need something 3, 4, 5 years down the line as well. So kind of just taking all that into consideration, listening to the client, and then once I've kind of got an idea from them off of, how much do they want to spend, just through asking, pointed questions or using examples of our previous work, or, just telling them what you're asking for right now through like what you want and need. It's probably going to be, let's just say $20,000 or something. And if that sounds, if they're telling, if just kind of based on the reaction, if it's a little, they don't seem fazed by it, okay, I'll kind of keep going from there. And if it's an if it's like outdoor living, from there I kind of go into not trying to, I don't try to sell people designs. Frankly, if they're looking for a patio or some sort of outdoor living space, they need a design, because it's not even necessarily just for their benefit, it's for our benefit. When I go through and I design and I quote a project, the design helps me to be able to, more accurately get, paver quantities, how much base we're going to need. anything like that. And then obviously on the client end as well, because we offer 2D and 3D modelings, or 3D renders for our clients. I've had such an overwhelming response with the 3D renderings that clients just immediately they see exactly what it's going to look like ahead of time, and it just takes all the confusion out of it. Versus if I just do a quote and take off from a design that they haven't even seen, there's probably going to be some. I can almost guarantee there's going to be some confusion. Come the actual installation of well, I thought this was going to be X amount of feet out instead of where it is, blah blah blah. So it helps to clear up confusion down the road. It helps me to be able to quote folks much more accurately, and then they already know what they're getting well before we even put a shovel in the ground. So it kind of that's how I kind of go about our sales process there. Really, I haven't had. I like it when I personally like it when customers just kind of start even ask me questions, because I've got no problem being open with somebody, just telling them this is I'm a geek when it comes to this kind of stuff. I could rattle off technical specs for hours. So if they want to know how much base we're putting down, I've got no problem doing that. And at the end of the day, it just kind of makes the customer feel more assured. And really, I want to leave that first consultation with a design, with the customer paying for a design, because I do charge for designs. It depends on if they want a 2D or 3D, etc. And them feeling assured that they've made the right choice in contacting us.
This is Adam of Lily Hardscaping.
That's definitely changing. At first, obviously, it was anything that came my way, you get out there as fast as possible and talk to them. Now I'm starting to kind of vet them a little bit over the phone, where it's what are you looking for? What's the size of the project? Just rough things, so I have an idea. Because if they tell me, yeah, I'm doing a driveway and I want it done in a month, then chances are I'm not your guy. As much as I would love to meet you and do the project, it's just not for me. So I do vet, their timeline, the scale of the project, and see where they're coming from. Obviously, everything we're up against is numbers, and the numbers vary so much too. So it's tough, but I try getting some idea of a budget out of them to make sure there's something reasonable. Connecticut is a very small state, but there are times that I'm driving, most days actually, I drive an hour each way. So if I'm going to be driving out there, even to meet you, again, being a one-man show, this is one of the negatives, is they say, I want to meet at 5. Well, that actually means that I'm leaving the job site early, and that means productivity stops. So it's getting to that point where I have to make sure that if I come out and meet you, this is something that's viable. This could go somewhere. Obviously, not all leads lead somewhere, but hopefully it goes somewhere. So there is a little bit of a process now. I also try to upsell the point of, I try to design more. If you are just looking for a 20 by 20 basic patio, we don't care what it looks like, we don't plan on staying in the house forever, then hey, this might not be the project for us to work together on. If you're looking for something unique, you're going to live there for forever, and you want your family to enjoy it, then that's more my talk,
This is Nick of Earthworks Landscaping.
Well, typically, so I get a lead off my website. I get an email that kicks back, and I have basically a simple questionnaire. It's your name, your address, what are you looking for? There's some check boxes on, different types of things that would happen on a landscaping job. I have a budget drop down. It says what is your budget? And it's like, it starts at 3,000 and goes to 8,000, and then maybe 9 to 15 and up, 25. So they have to choose their budget. And then I have a little, have them just fill out a little snippet about what are you looking for? What do you need, landscaping wise? And then from there, I try to get back to somebody as quickly as possible, whether or not I think it's going to be a good lead or not. I try to respond as quick as I can, because I know in this day and age, people they want something, they want to be satisfied immediately. So I try to get back to them as soon as I can, and then from there, if it looks like a good lead, I call them and kind of feel them out. I think it's something that over time and with experience, you kind of get a sense of whether or not after you start talking with them and they start talking, you ask questions like, can you tell me a little bit more about the project? Because a lot of times you don't get the full story on that first email. And then once they start talking, you can kind of get a sense of whether or not they're calling 3 other landscapers for just to get the lowest price, or if they've really kind of vetted you and they want to hire earthworks. I mean, after just a couple simple questions, I think I can typically figure that out. Not always, but and then from there, let's keep going. It sounds like a good lead. I might, right from that initial interview, phone interview, I might say, okay, well, I have time, this week or whatever day I can swing out and take a look. And does that sound okay? And then from there, we can do a what I call a walk and talk meeting, and come out to the site, walk around. You can show me and tell me what you're thinking, and I can interject some of my professional opinion and some of my ideas. And then from there, we can decide on a design price. Other times, if it doesn't sound like such a great lead, I might not even call them. I might just send them an email right back and say, if it seems to me like it's a job where they're looking for the lowest price, I'll send them back an email that says, certainly, interested, and I could come out and take a look at things. We do charge a consultation fee of whatever I guess I feel like. Typically it's around $75 to come and take a look at your project. And then from there I can quote you a design. So that weeds out a lot of the tire kickers, I think. Sometimes I'll get someone that says, yeah, that's fine, come on out. If that's the case and I end up getting the project or we do some work for them, I typically don't charge them that, but I use that consultation fee as kind of a tool to further qualify somebody, because I don't have time to. We're busy enough as it is. I don't have time to be going around and doing a lot of pro bono type work as far as like getting bids out to people and things like that. And I have some guys that used to work for me that have landscaping businesses that if I think that sounds like a good job, for them, I can send a couple referrals out to them, and those guys could, they're a little bit smaller than we are, don't have as much overhead, and those are kind of perfect jobs for them. So it's nice to have that and be able to refer some of those guys work too. So
this is Danny of Niche Gardens.
So really the first thing is I kind of just get a brief synopsis of, what makes you call us today type thing. What is it that you're looking for? And once I kind of get a brief description, either before or after that question, I kind of try to feel and say, how did you find out about us? Right after that, once I get the synopsis and stuff like that, I understand qualifying customers and vetting them and all this other kind of stuff. I've done it for years. But for me right now, I'm not saying that I act on everything that comes my way, but I at least go and look and see what's happening. And the reason is because sometimes people, they know they need something and they've had somebody put an idea in their head, and they instantly just say, okay, I need this. And you may qualify them and say, okay, well, that's not for me. Like for instance, they may call and say, well, I've got a drainage problem on the side of my driveway. I need a dry creek bed. Do you do that? Well, of course, if I just acted on that and said, man, that's too small. I can't pull all my equipment over there and move everybody just for River Rock Swell. But then if I'll take the time to go and actually investigate it and look at it, it's kind of like, oh, wow, okay, so you've got this problem because you need a wall here. We need to build up the neighbor's yard a little bit and divert the water from going into yours. So I act on a lot of stuff. Now, if someone calls up and says, I need pruning, I'm looking for pruning and stuff like that, I just instantly stop and say, okay, I don't do any kind of maintenance. I'm just not equipped for it. So, I'm not telling everybody to act on everything that comes across your way, but like in my situation, I'm in my third year, I pretty much go check out just about everything. And again, it's just because I don't know exactly if they understand what they're even trying to communicate to me.
This is Dan of Wasson Nursery.
What we'll do is, let's say there's a couple different ways, but clients can email me. They email, they get the general email and they email the staff, and we try to push them in the same funnel. And I'm probably the worst at it. I'm the owners are always the most pain in the butt guys, because sometimes we skip the processes that we make, and it gets the staff. I'm breaking the rules, but what we try to do is we try to push them into one of the coordinators. So we have two girls. Actually, we have four. Sorry, we have four staff members that are landscape coordinators, and the coordinator's job is to help coordinate everything with the client from beginning to end. And so I'll kick over, if I get an email from a client that wants done, it starts with, I'll kick it over to Annie, and then she'll set up the appointment. She'll kind of ask some basic questions like, what are you looking for? Do you have an idea of a budget? Do you have a time frame? Those are very important questions that we try to at least have some kind of an answer to right off the beginning. And then she'll set up with an appointment, and we'll do an initial design appointment, basically, where we just go out and we have a checklist of things to look at. We'll meet with the client. We'll, look them in the eyes, do a handshake, if not now, of course, but just to get to know them. And that's where we'll try to figure out what the design is going to take, what design will cost. And at that point is when they decide to move forward with the design process. If they like, if we get along on the first initial appointment, and once from there, then we'll go on to more of the design process of measuring and tell them what the design fee is and all the estimating side of it. The initial consultation, we've been back and forth on that. As of right now, we are not charging for it. I'll be honest, it got really busy there for a while back in August. I was getting so many calls from all kinds of pool companies that we were starting to charge for a consultation fee then, because there was just too many appointments. But right now, as far as company policy, we don't charge for that initial appointment. We do charge after that, depending on the scope of the work. That determines design fee.
This is Matt Heiner of Heiner Outdoor Living.
Yeah, so I kind of have a process on the phone. I like to spend a minimum of 10 to 15 minutes just kind of in the realm of pain or pleasure, basically. Why I want to get to the root of why they're calling me in the first place. Is it because they want to just have a nice place? Are they tired of mowing the grass? What is that point? What is the motivation to calling me? Like, why? Is it a new home and they just need to get the HOA minimums done? All right, great. I know that this is going to be a short conversation and we probably won't be a good fit. But are they calling me because they really want to turn their backyard into more of like a resort style space? Then, all right, awesome. Let's talk about that. I know I try and get them to tell me more of how they want to use the space, as opposed to, spending more time of, well, tell me what features you would like. I don't care if they want a fire pit or this, that, or the other. I'm trying to build them a lifestyle, and, they're coming to me because they don't know how to get there. And so I try and establish myself as an authority and as the designer from the very beginning to to show that they do need me, they do need my services, and they're not going to be able to get that lifestyle without working with a competent, talented designer to, put that vision together. I try and put a lot of emphasis on that as the most important part of this process, is to get that vision dialed in, and that we are going to spend a lot of time doing that, and that there is a fee that is attached with that. And so a lot of the people that come to us now kind of expect it, but a lot of the times you have to educate these people that, that it does take time. But if you're giving me a general idea of what you're looking for, I won't just jump into, well, that's going to be this price. I like to do what I call bracketing. I'm going to give them, I'm going to tell them, look, everything that you just told me, Mike, that sounds like a great project. That's something we can do. I can make this look really nice. Like it's something that you would see right out of a magazine, and something that we could go submit to awards. And Mike, we could go crazy. We could have a field day. We could be like at $150,000, $200,000 back there. And that might not be what you're after or what you're even wanting to spend or could spend, but you might be thinking on the low end, we could be doing something around this for $50,000 to $60,000. Which conversation are we having?
This is Jordan of DPR Landscapes.
When we first started the business, we would get a call. We'd be so overwhelmed with joy. We would just jump up and leave the house and say, hey, can you do it in 2 hours? And be at the person's house and try and give them a quote right on the spot. However, that's obviously changed quite a bit. So now I do not charge for consultations right now, but I do qualify the lead first. So leads, we just had our website kind of redone, and we're still working out a couple more pages on it. But we do have a form submission on our website that asks obviously about the scope of the project, but more importantly about the budget. So there's a minimum amount, and that is how we qualify leads to come in through the website. When I get a call on the phone, I always start by asking, about the scope of the project and then the timeline. So the scope of the project tells me it's worth my time or not. So nowadays, if I get a call and someone says, hey, I need a side door step system and a walkway. Okay, well, the smallest job we do is $10,000. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry, we're not looking at investing that much. So right off the bat, I've saved myself time from going out to see that client. So I would say, develop yourself a minimum amount of money that works for your business and how your business is structured and what is profitable for you. Some guys can do $5,000 jobs and end up being really profitable. It just doesn't work for my business, my overhead, and our machinery. And then basically I also ask, like I said, about timeline. So usually I'm booking at this point about 4 to 6 months in advance. The client's like, hey, I want my job done yesterday. I tell them when we're booking and they're like, nope, sorry, that doesn't work for me. So there goes, another waste of my time. So I don't have to waste my time on those jobs where ultimately the client isn't going to be a fit for us. And then if it is a job that I do want to do, the client, is okay with our scheduling, okay with our timeline, and it comes in through the phone. I ask the client, can you go to our website, please? Can you just follow up on all the scope that you asked for, click off all the boxes that apply to you, and also do you mind entering your budget? The reason I send them to our website to enter the budget is because on the phone, you're putting them on the spot, and likely you're only speaking to one person in the family. So obviously the husband and the wife make the decision together, right? So by going to the website, this actually gives them time to talk amongst each other about, hey, like, are we willing to invest 30,000? Are we willing to invest 50,000? What is it? What are we comfortable with? So that kind of gauges me on what I can actually sell the client on when I go to the meeting. So the client goes, hey, I want a patio that's X amount of square feet, or this by this is this big, and I want these features. I know right off the bat, hey, we might not be able to afford this feature, and I can use that as kind of a gauge and a selling tip also. So if a client says they want all these things, but then I say, okay, just to refresh, you said your budget was 35,000. This isn't going to work within your budget. We're more looking around 50,000. sometimes clients will go, you know what, okay, we just didn't know what the budget was, like what the cost of stuff like this is, and they'll tell me to go ahead, we're okay if it ends up coming in around 50. So having that price point from the client, I think, is really important. And then, going into the actual presentation of the quote, my initial quote is the full package. So I pride myself in kind of taking the time to make sure that I outline all the client's needs and give them a full and final quote for everything that I'm offering and that they have asked for. It's not any budget. It's not a rough estimate. It's the whole shoot and shebangle. So I asked them to give me a week or two to prepare the quote and design. I take the time now to do the designs myself. And I also work out material costs on a material and labor basis. I don't do square footages. I don't do per yard, anything along those lines. I think it's really important to do material costs and labor costs and submit your quote that way. And I also think it's really important to submit a thorough quote at the beginning, so that the client, when they are comparing quotes from another contractor, they can see everything that you are offering opposed to what another company is offering. And it also eliminates conflicts down the road because the client fully understands what you're offering and what you aren't offering. So what's included in the quote and what's not included in the quote. I think that's really important. And most of the clients that I sign with appreciate that about our process. And that's one of the reasons why they do sign with us, is because we do take the time to really outline all their needs and prepare them with an accurate, thorough quote. And then I also now, from the last 3 years or so, we've been submitting all of our quotes in person. So we sit down at the kitchen table, meet with the client, talk about all the items. I do this because it avoids miscommunications through email or miscommunications through the phone. If the client has any questions, they can ask then and there, and I can answer those questions, opposed to, a client sending me an email and it takes me half a day to get back to them. And then they take half a day to get back to me. And then I take half a day to get back to them. It's just that back and forth that it saves on. Obviously, COVID has kind of put an obstacle in the middle of that. But recently I have been going back to meeting people in person.
This is Craig of Scheller Outdoor Living.
Well, if it's a referral, then I pretty much just set up a time to meet. Or if they're comfortable doing that, I know things have changed a lot, recently. But if somebody, whether it's a contractor or a friend or a previous customer, if they refer me to somebody, I just set up an appointment. I typically, at first, I was just trying, how it is when you're starting. You're like, oh yeah, I'll get in front of everybody. And I wasn't really saying, hey, what's your budget? Or if I did, they'd be like, we don't know yet. You get that same answer. So I was doing so many bids and not closing anything. And I'm trying to get back into the game. I'm trying to figure out what people are charging. I actually bought your spreadsheet and I was like, well, this will help me. And it's actually been a really good help. I'm just trying to put all the numbers back in to make sure I'm, doing the costing and stuff right. And the times, but that's been a real big help for, the overhead, the things you just trying to figure out right off the bat. And so what I was doing was a lot of bids and not getting a lot of, sales. We were getting enough sales. So I started doing something different, and I tried to bait them on the budget. And the way I was doing that was, they were like, well, we don't really know. And I said, well, if you need a design, we're going to have to design something that fits your budget. So we're not, wasting your time or ours. So I can design something. We can design something that's 5,000, or we can design something that's 200,000+. And then immediately you get that, oh, well, I was thinking like 30 or 50 or, it's like, so you did have a budget. So then I can say, or if it's 5, then I'm like, well, that's really not going to work. But if it's 50, then I'm like, well, let's come check it out. I'm sure we can, work something that sounds like you've done enough research that this is going to be an investment. So that's kind of where that goes. And usually that number is the starting point. We had a pool bid that we turned into a patio, because they didn't realize pools were so much. But we turned it into a nice patio project. So I try not to leave just saying, sorry, we can't do your pool or we can't do your patio, but we look at other things that we can do or maybe phase the project as we go. So that's kind of, I was spending a lot of time running around. So now that I've gotten busier in the field, I've tried to value my time more, and I have done less estimates, but I've gotten better estimates, I guess.
This is Phil of PJE Lawn Care and Landscaping.
So a lot of times, we're asking them, what their ideal situation looks for, what features they're looking for. Are you including a pool, no pool? Are you, do you have any ideas of what you want? Have you done any research on styles and things of that nature that you want? And really try to just feel them out and judge the location and judge their referral source. So, where did you find out about us? How did you get my number? And what are you looking to have done? And then, going from there, we do. I don't have it with me, but we do have kind of a vetting portfolio of some things that we'll ask up front to make sure that it's something new. But we do projects as small as $2,500 all the way up to $2.5 million. So project size doesn't really matter to me. It's a matter of what their expected time frame is on that project and how quickly we can get there to get that job done. And B, do their personalities mesh with our objectives as a business? Can we make these people happy? Because again, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is log another sales agent out there selling our next project. So can we marry these people for the long haul? And will this job turn out the way we want it to turn out? And will our personalities mesh to get there? I think one of the industry's biggest, one of the entire industry's biggest problems, and I think that I've helped some guys in this manner, but one of the biggest problems is in our industry is everybody wants to ask people how much they want to spend. When they call or when that first call, well, what's your budget? And I hate it. I think it's toxic. I think it's the worst question you can ever ask somebody. And there's a plethora of reasons for that. But the ones at the top of the line are homeowners and people that are calling you to ask for your services have no clue what the costs are. So their ideal budget for what they want is rooted off of what they might have found on Google when they Googled what a fire pit should cost or what a pergola should cost. And Google doesn't know what those things should cost. They're finding the most easiest information to find and putting that on there and saying, oh, a 12 by 12 pergola should cost $3,000. Well, all of us know a $12,000 or 12 by 12 pergola is a $7,500 pergola, material, labor, footings, all that stuff in. But that client's information that they got off of Google, uneducated information, in their mind, that pergola is $3,500 because Google said so. So I tell people the worst thing you can do with a client up front before you start the design process, before you start the initial consultation, is ask them what they want to spend. A, because they're uneducated on what it actually costs. And B, they don't know what they want to spend in most cases. And I don't say that as a slap on somebody's intelligence. But what I've found over the years of developing the sales strategy is, and I ask clients this, once we get them into contract phase, how much did you think you were going to spend in your backyard? Oh, when we called you initially, we thought we were going to be somewhere around 50 to 75. That same client spent 250, So what we do, we take a lifestyle approach to our sales. When we go into these people, I ask questions like, how many people live in your home? What's your average entertainment party size look like? What are some features that are must-haves? And then, if you look at some of our work, you're going to see we implement, fire features, water features, all these kind of upsell things that people don't even know they want. But if you put them on paper and it works really well and your design is phenomenal, they go, oh, well, if we take that out, it really hinders the design. So yeah, I'll spend that $20,000 because it looks cool, and so what I've found is if you go into a meeting and ask somebody and they say, my budget's $50,000 and you design around that $50,000, you leave so much on the table, because let's be real here. I would say 50% of people that are calling to have a outdoor living space created or a complete property overhaul, hardscape and landscaping, have expendable income, and their net worths are probably much higher than the average. The average homeowner who makes $100,000 a year isn't calling to do a pool and a patio and a pergola and a fire pit and all those cool things. They do, but that's most of our clientele in our industry that are paying for pavers instead of concrete or whatever are they have the disposable income, and they just have to be educated on what things cost. So, and they're more focused on a cool design and a functional design that works for their lifestyle than they are a number. So, I tell people all the time, I preach it and I preach it and I preach it. Stop asking budgets up front. Stop. Present your budget with the design that works for their lifestyle, a phenomenal design that answers all their wants, needs, and desires, and then watch them quadruple their budget in a split second. It's amazing what happens when you present a design that works for people and answers all those things instead of going, well, you said $50,000, so you can't have this and you can't have that. And we can't upgrade you to this because we got to hit that $50,000 target. Instead, give them all the upgrades and then work back. So, like I said, I have clients that in their mind it was 50,000. We signed at 250,000, but their initial design was 400,000. And people go, well, that's a lot of work. There's a lot of things that go into that. And I go, look, it's always easier to work backwards from a phenomenal design and go, okay, let's take that feature out. Let's downgrade this smaller patio over here to some kind of decorative stamped concrete instead of pavers, since it won't be used as much and it's not a staple in the design. Or let's go to a pergola instead of a solid roof structure, to lessen that number down. It's easier to show, in my opinion, show them all the things that they could have if money's not an issue, and then start chunking it back. And those people who wanted to spend 50,000 will spend 250,000, even though you wanted them to spend 400,000, but you're still 4 or 5 times higher than you would have been had I led that meeting with, what's your budget? And so, and I tell my clients transparently when we meet, I don't want to know your budget. I'm probably going to be over budget on your first design, but I'm going to show you some really cool things. I'm going to show you what your potential is, and then we'll whittle it down to what works. And that model, that sales tactic is why our average backyard is $175,000, not $50,000. That's why, our average client at very least doubles their mental budget with us instead of spending this obscure number that they came up with. We're always double that number. And we capitalize on what every penny that they're willing to dig out of their bank account to pay us, So I think it's huge issue in the industry. Guys go, well, I don't want to waste time on a design that they can't do. And I'm like, you're not wasting time. You're developing a relationship and you're showing them things that they didn't even know were possible, and, no, I'm not going to show somebody a pool if they don't want a pool. I'm not going to show somebody a fire pit if they don't want a fire pit. But I'm also not going to show somebody who says, I want a pool, a fire pit, and, a pergola, what everybody else is showing them, a rectangular pool with a circle fire pit and a seat wall around it and a pergola attached to their house. We're going to get uber creative and give them something completely different and show them some features instead of using landscape lights to light up some trees that are surrounding their patio, I'm going to introduce 5 fire bowls that accent the patio and are on a remote switch to turn on that illuminate the patio with some natural firelight. The difference in cost of that is, $500 to put some uplights and some trees, or $15,000 to build some masonry columns and put some firewall on them and automate them. Ultimately, at the end of the day, my pictures show better. My jobs end up being better designed, and clients get stuff that they didn't even know they wanted. And then they can't live without it once they have it. So the next time they sell that house and they build their next house, they go, you put 5 of those in for me at the last one. I want 10 at this one. We loved them so much. So that's kind of one of the things that we do with our clients early on. That's a little different than our competitors. We don't want to talk money until we have the design that they want, and then try to figure out how to work that into their comfort range.
This is Josh of Mass Hardscapes.
Yeah. So most of our work, it comes through our website. I actually, and this is very different, I don't post my phone number really anywhere. I try not to give my phone number out to customers until they actually are in the sales process. So I like to just go through email. It keeps me more organized. I can keep track of everything. So customers usually are contacting me through email or through the website, which just sends me an email. And the first thing I do is once they contact me through the website, they have to check off what type of work they're looking for. So I'll have a list of check boxes that will have like patio work, fire pit, fireplace, outdoor kitchen, pool patio, stuff like that. So immediately I'm getting an idea of the type of project when they first contact me before even talking to them. Once I get that email, I will usually, the first thing I ask is where they're from, because we're in an area where I live on kind of the line of there's some money and there's a lot of money. So depending on what town that is coming from, like there's towns where if they contact me, I know they have money. Like it's just an automatic, they have money. So that's a good start. I will try to get a little bit more details on what the project is, if they have an idea on design, if they've done research on products, on costs. Just try to get an idea where they're at in the process. Sometimes I will send people to another contractor if I feel like they're just not a good fit, the project's too far, anything like that. But usually I'll end up setting up an in-person appointment, and that's really where I can get a better feel for things. I try not to ask about budget until we're in person. So usually at the in-person appointment is where I can get a really good feel for where that person is at. And if I don't get a good feel, I'll kind of end things there and say, hey, this just isn't a good fit. Contact this person. That way I'm not spending too much time. I don't want to go through the whole design process with somebody and then find out that we're doing $100,000 design and their budget's $40,000. So try to get a feel for that beforehand.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Visit us at howtohardscape.com for more information. Let us know what you want to learn about in future episodes by reaching out to our social channels. We're at How to Hardscape on Facebook, Instagram. Contact us at contact@howtohardscape.com if you want to let us know what you want to hear about in future podcast episodes. We'd love it if you subscribe to our podcast, left us a rating and review wherever you can. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And again, thank you to Alliance Gator for sponsoring today's episode. Go check them out at alliancegator.com, and we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.